Well, what a wonderful morning and an entree to our guest speaker by hearing that song. You know, We've Only Just Begun came out 1970, and it was about a 3-line jingle on a television ad for Crocker Bank. And it went over so well that a couple of people in the music business approached Paul and said, "Do you have the rest of the song?" And luckily, he had written it. And so it's kind of like, it's the only time in my life where I've heard a jingle on television that I got goosebumps. And I got total goosebumps the very first time I heard that song, and I got them again today. And it's just a wonderful work. It's about redemption. It's about our redemption and yours, Paul, and all of our loved ones. You know, I'm going to go back a little in time and tell you about how I met Paul. Well, in 1970, when he became very popular singing that song and others, I felt like I knew him or I recognized him. And I couldn't place it, but then many years later, 46 years later, my wife Susan and I were fortunate enough to learn that Paul and his bride Mariana were going to be moving into our neighborhood next door to us. And so as a result of that, you know, I don't know if Susan took cookies over, some of her famous cookies or not, but on one of the occasions we were at dinner or saw them in the beginning, I said, "Paul, you know, I feel like we've known each other. Do I look familiar to you?" He said, "Yeah, you kind of look familiar to me." And I said, "Where'd you go to high school?" He said, "Well, I graduated from Wilson, Long Beach Wilson in 1958. Yeah, I know there are a few of you out here. There you go. And I said, "Oh, that's great. I went to Poly, class of 60. And there you go. And gosh, we've got to have something in common. I said, "Well, what did you do after high school?" He said, "Well, I got an apartment downtown." And all of a sudden, I remembered. So in about 1959 or 60, about a mile up the road here at Pacific in Anaheim, there used to be a mortuary. And my family was involved in it, and many of my friends and other students. My father loved students from Long Beach State and Long Beach City College, and he would routinely hire attendants to run the ambulances and all from Long Beach State, Long Beach City, and there were a couple of other rooms with a dormitory above the place. So there was a 24-hour staff at all times. And Paul said, "Yeah," he said, I used to have a room above the mortuary at Pacific in Anaheim." He said, "That's right, you did, but you didn't work there." "No," he said, I was a musician and an actor beginning, and he said that was really a turning point in my life. Well, one thing for sure, Paul, it was a quiet place to play the guitar and meditate or study or whatever you were doing, progressing in your life as an actor at that moment. And he was progressing for sure. But you know, Paul, with all of your wonderful work, your songwriting, your singing, you know, it was listed in the program that you're the president of ASCAP, which is no small job. You serve as the superintendent of all royalties for composers, authors, and publishers with an office in New York, so he travels a bit. And it was interesting that We've Only Just Begun was his first Grammy, and he won his most recent Grammy. He's had several last year, and he was the guy who accepted it for the album, and it was two robots called Daft Punk, two robots in white Darth Vader masks, and no one's ever met them except for Paul. But anyway, Paul's lyrics have been recorded by many different stars: Frank Sinatra, Ray Charles, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, the Dixie Chicks, and you can go on, and Kermit the Frog, but I wasn't going to forget him. So here's my favorite line from your song with Kermit. "Why are there so many songs about rainbows? And what's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, but only illusions, and rainbows have nothing to hide." I love that. So he also won awards for the song Evergreen with Barbra Streisand, and many songs for all the Muppet shows, the Muppet movies, Muppet Christmas, and so forth. One of the most important things I can tell you about Paul is that in his challenges in life, he went to UCLA to get a certification as a drug rehabilitation counselor. And with that certification, he has traveled all over the world. And in fact, he just got back a couple of days ago addressing people who are trying to become rehabilitated. And I don't know how many miles you've traveled, but I know it's a lot. And he wrote a book recently called Gratitude and Trust. And gratitude and trust is not just for somebody wanting a renewal. The affirmations that he used throughout that book were affirmations that are important and meaningful. So Paul has led a life of sharing with others, and it's a life of service to people. And we're here to honor him today and to hear his story. I'm in a little bit of a dilemma because I'm going to be introducing a video as well as Paul. So when he comes up in a moment after the video, so I'm really introducing the video. But I think a couple of Paul's most outstanding compositions are his children, Cole, and his daughter, Sarah. And I did want to mention those. And before I go, I'm going to say, who can forget the ship pulling out of the harbor, the captain, the tour guide, the bartender, and the ship's doctor urging us to join them. And the song goes, love, exciting and new. Come aboard, we're expecting you. Love is life's sweetest reward. Let it flow. It flows back to you. So I looked around Paul's music, and I've been a devotee for all these years, even before I met you for the second time. And I want to tell you my favorite phrase of Paul's. And you know, you fit these words, these phrases of yours, so perfectly to the music, Paul. I mean, it's really just a rare talent. But you and me against the world, it feels like you and me against the world. And for all the times we've cried, I've always felt that God was on our side. And when one of us is gone, and one is left alone to carry on, then remembering will have to do. Memories alone will get us through. Think about the days of me and you and me against the world. So I'm going to be presenting for his first round of applause, a man of high spirits and deep soul, Paul Williams.
We've only just begun to live. So many roads to choose. We start out walking and learn to run.
You all set, kid?
Right, Harry. Connect the umbilical.
Tambourines ringing and young people singing. Tomorrow's a new day, baby. Anything can happen. Anything can happen at all.
I was expecting Paul McCartney.
Up! Hey! Come in close.
This is 7 months of nothing but banana daiquiris.
Look at it. Here they come.
One day someone will tame you if he's half a man.
Well, you fit that description perfectly.
Soon we'll be making another run.
Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. In time we've learned Time won't change the meaning of one love, ageless and ever
You know, from the headwaters of a mortuary in downtown Long Beach, your life can take amazing turns and the like. Happy Good Friday morning. It's a great honor to speak to you. I want to thank the Valley Christian Chorale for, we've only just begun, had all the romantic beginnings of a bank commercial, as you pointed out, Jack, And one I didn't want to write. It's like, I don't want to write a bank commercial. I'm like a sort of this black leather street guy, which I wasn't at all, but I don't want to write that. And my writing partner, Roger Nichols, who wrote the music and I wrote the words, said to me, there's a little fee in it. I went, let's write this commercial, immediately. We wrote the commercial, and there was never any chance that was going to be a hit song. It might be an album cut or it might be a B-side. Remember B-sides? The records had 2 sides. I loved that, So we finished the song and all, and then an angel from Downey sang it. An angel from Downey sang it, and all of a sudden it had a life that I couldn't have imagined. I couldn't have imagined as a kid writing that song. A kid, I was 30 when I wrote it. When I wrote the song, I couldn't have imagined that it would be sung today at a breakfast, a faith breakfast at the YMCA. And it occurs to me that there was a transformation of that song and the meaning of that song and the power of that song and the life of that song that was the result of a great human kindness and talent and shoe leather. People walking up to me in my life and saying, here, let me take this and make this part of your life better. This is about transformation. Good Friday is about, Easter is about transformation. And I'm here today not because I'm a songwriter, not because I'm president and chairman of the board of ASCAP, which is I'm pleased to have a moment of a hum, That's my impression of an adult, I'm here because on my knees, my spirit broken, a line from a song I wrote. On my knees, my spirit broken, I cried, help me, if anybody can. Well, Lazarus and me are truly brothers, 'cause on my knees is where it all began. My name is Paul Williams, and I'm a very grateful recovering alcoholic. Thank you. And that's the truth, and if I keep speaking the truth, I will look at the life that I have, the life I have today, and realize that it is absolutely all a gift. I'm sober today by the grace of God, and I'm sober today by the grace of God and the principles of a program that I will not mention by name at a public level. I cannot mention the name of this organization because of this organization's traditions, but I will tell you, you can find them at the front of the phone book. And therein you will find my most solid, tangible connection to the YMCA, because I have spent a lot of time in your basement where we meet, And if I talk about transformation and recovery, I want to take a moment to do a quick commercial for, your presence here today is a gift. It is the elegance of kindness that you bring into this room, the elegance of kindness. You're living the action of love and service. And as you walk out of here today and you continue to support the YMCA, there's a little organization called Flossie Lewis, where I spoke a few years ago and all, which was started by the mayor's mother. An amazing organization where women can put their lives back together. It's Sober Living for Women in Long Beach, an amazing organization. Mayor, it's an honor to sit next to you and to I did not set out to become an alcoholic. I come from the joke is I come from a long line of short alcoholics, but the fact is I don't. My alcoholics in my family were all 6 foot and more, I was just, that amazing footage that you see of me looking like a little boy there, that was post-high school, some of it. I mean, the first movie where I played the little rocket scientist, I was in my early 20s. I was just 4'6" when I got out of high school. 4'6", this little guy who was scared to death, but it didn't show, because that's part of being, I think, part of my alcohol. Long before I drank alcoholically, I acted alcoholically and all. And it was, if I was afraid or uncomfortable, I would cover it up with a cute line and a smile, and I would keep moving and all. I would move away, move away. So what is a little guy like that feels out, didn't have a date in high school? Sad, sad, sad. You know, what's a little guy that knows nothing about relationships going to do for a living? I write love songs. You know. And I have spent my life writing codependent anthems. It's what I mean, I won't last a day without you is not a healthy thought. Come on, I've done a little therapy, and I understand that, you know. But something in me wanted to make music, and I came to live in Long Beach when I was 14 years old. My dad had died in a car wreck as a result of alcoholism. He was drunk and drove his car into the abutment of a bridge. I went to Wilson, got out of it, and could not wait to get out of Long Beach, because I looked around and I went, this town is full of old people. I got to get out of here because I'm going to be a star. You know, the ego was big, the body was tiny, the ego was huge. I was going to get out of here because it was full of old people. Well, I met my wife, Mariana, producer of Long Beach Searches for the Greatest Storyteller. There's your commercial, honey. Met my wife, and I moved back to Long Beach in 2003. I looked around and I went, there's no old people here. They're all my age. It was fantastic, you know. And damn good looking, I will tell you that, you know. I did not set out to become an alcoholic, but I know that alcohol made me feel big enough to deal with the rest of the world. And cocaine made me feel like I could shoot basketball for money. I didn't want to leave the room. I was afraid I would miss what I was saying. I became so enthusiastic about everything in life and all. And I think at some level it gave me confidence that I should have gotten just from the fact that every time you take a breath, some beautiful piece of God is acting within your body to put your life together, to give you life and all. But no, I didn't. I had no sense of gratitude for the opportunities I was given. All I had was ambition. But I love music, and that element of love, I think that love is the power that moves us forward in the right direction if we listen to it. It is that capacity. That's the elegance of kindness. My most favorite line that I've ever written is at the end of a movie called Bugsy Malone, and the line is, you give a little love and it all comes back to you. You give a little love and it all comes back to you. That's the essence of what I've been taught in recovery, you know. My use of drugs and alcohol led to a place where in the late 80s, I went to Oklahoma City to do a concert, and I had a full-tilt psychotic meltdown. Full-tilt psychotic meltdown. I came back from that, and incidentally, I thought for 45 minutes that I was being tortured by somebody. I was thrown down what I thought were escalator stairs by a creature that nobody could see but me. It was awful. And there was a promoter that was with me as we were walking down a hotel hallway when this happened, who was just terrified. And he took me to the gig. We couldn't do the gig. He said, I did it the next day. I went home and I continued to drink. But a few days later, in a blackout, because I was a blackout alcoholic, you know. Incidentally, my story is pretty boring. I never came out of a blackout with a Russian arms dealer. I never came out of a blackout in a house of ill repute with Norman Mailer in Paris, you know. I'd come out of a blackout in the boys department of Sears. It was, you know, trying on sweaters, you know. Where am I? But a few days after that true bottom of mine, with no intention to get sobered in a blackout, I called a doctor. I called a doctor and I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't drive drunk in my car with my kids in the car as I was doing. I can't live the life that I'm living, because my life had, for all the glory of the glory of God and the gifts that I've been given throughout the 70s and all that success, you know, that you got to see, I wasted it. And the 80s for me were essentially gone. You know you're an alcoholic when you misplace a decade, incidentally. If you miss the 80s, you belong you're an alcoholic. So it's the end of the 80s, and in a blackout, A few days after a total meltdown, I called a doctor. And he called me back the next morning and he said, I found a place for you to get some treatment, Paul. And I went, what are you talking about? He said, well, you called me yesterday. I said, somebody's been using my body again. What the hell's going on there, And then I had that moment of surrender. And that surrender is where I win. When I surrender, when I quit fighting, when I turn to the world around me and say, this is not something I know how to do, when I'm willing to share who I am authentically, including the parts of me that are broken, including the parts of me that desperately need help, when I turn to you with my arms out like that, it was spectacular, because when he said, I found a place for you, and I surrendered, I went to treatment, and I found a life I couldn't have imagined. Because when I walked into a room full of people I did not know, and I said, you know what, I'm dying, I'm scared. Mr. Big Shot is just a little guy who doesn't know what the hell he's doing and he needs some help. You came out of the woodwork. Recovering alcoholics came out of the woodwork and said, here, we will show you. A choir of grateful hearts were singing a song that I was going to learn to sing as well. And I found the life that was most beyond my imaginings. You talked about my recent success, with Daft Punk. I've written for frogs and robots and all. The fact is that my life is all about people. My life is about the willingness to listen a little bit and be led. Lazarus and me are truly brothers. This is a second life for me. This is a life beyond my imaginings. I did write a book called Gratitude and Trust, and I did go to UCLA, where I got my certification, and I entered into what I refer to as the Dalai Lama period of my life. Come touch the hem, and I will strike you sober. It was a chance for me to be of love and service, but most importantly, it was a chance for me to concentrate on the one thing that was most important, and that is for me to continue to live sober. There is hope for the hopeless. That's my message. And I will go anywhere to carry the message. My work in ASCAP takes me to Ireland regularly. I got to tell you, Ireland is one of my favorite places in the world. It is like the headwaters of alcoholism. There are so many alcohol. It's a little dangerous for me to go to Ireland because I play golf. And imagine you're in the middle of your backswing and somebody grabs you and goes, "Where'd you hide the gold, you little bastard?" It's like, wait a minute, take your hands off. I love my life. I love my life. The book that I wrote is the original title was Recovery is Not Just for Addicts, because recovery and the process of recovery is about giving away what you've been given. It's what the YMCA does by its very nature. It is the very nature of what youth development. I kind of missed that part, but healthy living, I'm finally I run 2 miles in the morning. People walk by me while I'm running, but I run. Social responsibility. There's hope for the hopeless. I am a miracle among miracles. And if a loving God, a higher power that I call the Big Amigo, if a loving God can put a hopeless alcoholic back together and give him a life of love and service and gifts that he couldn't have imagined. I'm sitting here up here at the front table down there is my beautiful wife, Mariana, recovering from a broken arm. So she is surely the sound of one hand clapping these days. And sitting next to her is Dr. Terrell. Dr. Jim Terrell is my minister at the Center for Spiritual Living in Newport Mesa. And what he says and the goodness around me finds its way into my life, found its way into my book. My book is a book of affirmations that I co-wrote with Tracy Jackson. And it's a very simple process of using the elements of my own recovery and allowing people, for 26 years now, not 25. For 26 years, people have been saying to me, why doesn't the rest of the world have something like what you alcoholics have? So that's what Tracy and I tried to do. Our first affirmation is something needs to change, and it's probably me. Something needs to change. I needed to change, and I changed. The second one comes straight from the heart of Dr. Terrell over there, and that is, I don't know how to do this, but something inside me does. So something inside me does know what to do at this point, and that's the presence of my higher power. That's the presence of God Almighty. I was about 3 months sober when I was Christian, when I was baptized and became a Christian. And a pure alcoholic. I decided the day that I was baptized, I had to be baptized. I called a friend of mine at the Methodist church and I said, I got to be baptized. He said, well, okay, we'll take care of that. I went, no, today. He said, you really? I said, yeah, I don't know why, but it's got to be today. It was at Christmas time. And there was a choir of kids practicing for the Christmas pageant. And they were singing carols, Christmas carols, while I was baptized. You know, those little moments in your life will stick with you and they grow, you know. There are things that shrink. At 3 in the morning, I have problems that I couldn't imagine, and how am I ever going to get through this? And magically, the good Lord shrinks them. I wake up in the morning at 7 a.m., I look at them, and I go, there's nothing to worry about. You're being taken care of. I hit my knees in the morning. I hit my knees in gratitude, and I say, these are my prayers. And it's as simple as this. I get up in the morning, and I say, surprise me, God. You know, in recovery, we do it one day at a time. If we're doing it one day at a time, every day is my birthday. If today is my birthday, then I want you to surprise me, God. It is indicative of complete trust in the power and the goodness of my higher power, the Lord, and the Lord Jesus Christ, you know, who... So I wear my little cross around my neck. I wear a symbol in my ear of the organization that saved my life. And all I say, surprise me, God. My second prayer is, I think, perhaps the most important prayer of the day for me. One of them. And it's lead me where you need me. Lead me where you need me. Because if you take me, thank you. I love that. I love saying that. And I'll tell you why. It's not because of any grand noblesse oblige in me. It's not because, you know, because I'm a do-gooder. It's because if I am led where I am needed, and we all have the capacity to answer, to ask for that and be led to the place we're needed. If you are led to the place you are needed, if you are like me, you'll experience that wonderful feeling of usefulness. Lord God Almighty, does it ever feel any better when you're feeling truly useful? Because when I'm feeling useful, I don't feel like I'm in the way. And there was a lot of years with the Oscar in hand, with the Grammy in hand, was sitting on Johnny Carson's couch. I did 48, I remember 6, when I still felt like I was in the way. But if I get up in the morning and I face an organization, an amazing audience, people who got up at 6 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning, put a tie on and everything, to come some little guy jabber on and all. What you have done in this very action tells me that I'm exactly where I need to be. I am not in the way. I am amongst my pure family. If there is hope for the hopeless for one little alcoholic, I would think that loving God can straighten out this world that we're living in. You know, I'll pray for that today. Thank you, everybody.